we're back. Here we go. Okay, so anyway, there's a little typo here. We want to make sure this is equal to 0, okay, since we are solving. But we want to figure out, okay, what's the best method to use, all right? Well, square roots is out. I could complete the square in this one, or I could try factoring this one. It's kind of up to you. You could do either one. Because I know that 4 doesn't go into 17 and 15, I'm going to try to factor first. All right, so let's see. Remember, to factor, I'm going to, with a number in front of a square, or excuse me, when a, my a term, my number in front of x squared is greater than 1, I want to use split the middle term. So I'm going to multiply a times c, which gives me negative 60. And I want numbers that'll add, two factors that'll add to 17. When we think about the factors of 60, 1 and 60, 4 and 15, 2 and 30, 3 and 20. Negative 3 and 20. So I'm going to take this middle term and split it into 20x. Remember, I always put my larger term first, just to stay consistent. And 4x squared stays the same. Okay, I have 4 terms. I'm going to go 2 by 2 grouping. Here, the greatest common factor is 4x. Excuse me. Left over, 4x squared divided by 4x leaves an x. 20x divided by 4x gives me positive 5. Here I have a negative 3x minus 15. I want to take out a negative 3. You get x plus 5 as well equals 0. Remember, now, these two match. So that automatically is one of my factors. If I take out x plus 5 in the first, I'm left over with 4x. If I take out x plus 5 here, I'm left over with negative 3. And that's equals 0. 0. Still not really working, is it? Okay. Zero product property says I can set each factor equal to 0, so I get x plus 5. Some of you may be able to skip this step. That's totally fine. Equals 0. I don't understand why this is doing this. It's so frustrating. Holy buckets. X equals negative 5. X equals 3 over 4. Wowzers. Weird, wild stuff right there. Okay, so let's look at this next one, number 18. I want to think of, if I can't obviously do the square root, so I'm down to complete the square and factor it. Well, if I think about this number 13, 13 is a prime number. So, since it's a prime number, that tells me right away that I'm not going to be able to factor, but I'm going to have to complete the square. So if I add, the first step in completing the square is move your constant to the other side, isolate your terms with x, plus blank equals 13 plus blank. Remember, when I complete the square, I take my b term and divide it by 2. My b term is 6. Again, you might be able to do this in your head, that's fine. 6 over 2, and I square that. Well, 6 divided by 2 is 3. Oh, man. 3 squared gives me 9. And what I do to one side, I have to do to the other. Remember, the reason we complete this square is to create a perfect square trinomial. This is a perfect square trinomial here. That becomes x. This is a positive. This is a positive 3 plus 3 squared equals 22. Alright, next, I have the square. Now I want to take the square root of both sides. X plus 3 equals plus or minus root 22. Bring that 3 over, x equals negative 3 plus or minus the square root of 22. And remember, 22 does not simplify. There are no perfect squares that go into 22. So our method here was completing the square. All right. Next, I have a constant and a squared. All right, so I'm not going to be factoring here unless I want to multiply this out. I don't really want to complete the square since it's kind of already done for me. So I'm going to use the square root method here. So I'm going to add the 664 to the other side. Whenever I can use the square root method when I have a binomial squared. Okay, that's just like here in completing the square. This part right there. I had a binomial squared equal to constant. But now I have a binomial squared equals a constant. So I'm going to take the square root of both sides. X minus 7 equals, well, the square root of 64 is 8. When I solve, remember, I want the plus or minus 8. So this one's a little bit unique. We didn't do one like this in our notes. I'm going to add 7 to the other side. So I have x equals 7 plus or minus 8. So this is a case where I can actually get two separate answers. So two real numbers, all right? Two separate answers. So I need to do x plus 7, or excuse me, 7 plus 8, and x equals 7 minus 8 to get my two answers. So x should equal 7 plus 8, 15. X should equal -1. And if I realize this, now I'm going to let you in a little secret here. We could have factored this because it came out to nice whole integers. So I could have actually factored this, but it was easier in my mind to do the square root method. Okay. Last one here. I have a trinomial. All right. So if I have a trinomial, I'm most likely not going to be using the square root method here. I could complete the square, but I want to think about 10. Are there two factors of 10 that will add to give me 7? Yes, there are. So I'm going to factor this. X plus 5, x plus 2 equals 0. So x equals -5, x equals -2. That concludes cumulative review number 9. Happy studying.